Welcome to Ground Up Growth, where we share entrepreneurial insights, business strategies, and personal growth lessons to help listeners build success from the ground up.
Welcome back to Ground Up Growth. Today, I'm in a different seat. I'm in the hot seat. I've got my wife, Gina Hopper, here to quiz me on my story. So we've had several people have reached out asking when I'm going to tell my story, and I've put it off, and now here we are. So I'm on the other side of the table.
And I'm the host of Ground Up Growth.
You're the host. So Gina knows me all too well, so I'm going to let her quiz me on some stuff, and I'll just kind of give a little bit of insight on where I started and where we're at and where we're going, hopefully. So my name's Paul Hopper. I am 38 years old. I was born in Meridian, Mississippi. My parents, let's see, they're from Meridian as well. Obviously. And then I've got one older brother. He's 40 years old, and he is a rocket engineer at NASA. So different genes, but nobody in my family is in the real estate business. Kind of a weird roadmap on how I ended up getting into the real estate business, but so that's kind of my background. Let's see.
What do your parents do?
So my parents, they do nothing now. So my dad retired last fall. He worked at the post office. So he's worked at the post office from day one. My parents got transferred to Ridgeland. Dad moved to the Pearl post office when I was probably 5. And so they bought a house in Ridgeland. I grew up in Ridgeland, went to Ridgeland High School. Dad worked night shift a lot of times. So, being young, I remember that was always a weird dynamic, just having to be quiet during the day, things like that. But my mom, she was very involved with us. She was a stay-at-home mom and very instrumental in me and my brother's upbringing, and just always involved in every aspect. And so I had very, very good parents growing up. They were really good role models, and so I was blessed in that regard for sure. So
Okay, you went to Ridgeland High School. Did you say that?
I did. I went to Ridgeland High School. I started at Madison Central in 9th grade, and then they built Ridgeland High School, so I got swapped over there, and then graduated in 2005.
Were you in the band?
Man, I was in the band. I played the trumpet. I was in the band.
Are you sure you want me to host this?
You got some pretty deep stuff on me for sure. So, but my story for the most part is just work. I worked every chance I could get. I've always worked. I've always been exposed to work. Dad, had an extremely strong work ethic. And so I was privy to that growing up, and just it's always been a big part of my journey is work. Let's see. Went to Mississippi State and graduated in management of construction and land development in 2009 at the height of the Great Recession. So, what you want me to talk about?
Okay, I'm going to back up. No, I'm going to back up. So I feel like your parents are very nervous about telling your story. And the thing they're most nervous about is the ledgers. So I feel like we should start there. And I don't know if Hannah can do this, but if she can, I would love to overlay like a picture so people can know what the ledgers look like. Because to me, that's a big part of why you're like you are today, and why you're who you are today, and why you have a work ethic like you do today. So let's start with the ledgers.
So the ledgers came about, and what that was, that's before online banking was a thing. So my dad basically had graph paper that he kept checks and balances, debits and credits on me, treated it like a bank account for me. And that started at the age of 9. And the reason that it did start at 9 was, so to kind of frame it up, I mean, I grew up in a extremely frugal household. I mean, we didn't go on vacations. We did some vacations. I mean, but we didn't go to the beach every single year and things like that. It was just, we had enough to get by. I mean, it was a typical middle class deal. Dad worked at the post office, and then mom didn't have an actual W-2 job. So, I mean, we were within those parameters, but it just wasn't new shiny things. It was none of that, and it was just really.
Well, they provided what you needed, but anything extra.
Yeah, anything extra.
Right.
So yes. So I never did without. I'm going to say that. So I basically, for instance, it was when I was 9. I had. There was these Shaquille O'Neal tennis shoes that were hideous, but they were like, that's what I wanted.
I've seen the picture. Yeah.
And Hannah can probably overlay that picture as well, but it's, they were hideous shoes, but they were like $80 or $90. And I was 9 years old or somewhere right around 9. And, I remember Dad was like, Dad and Mom would give me like whatever the average shoe would cost. So if the average shoe cost was $30 or $40, they'd say, I'll give you $30, $40. You can get whatever you want, but you're paying for the difference.
Right.
And when you're 9, what that did, and I appreciate that. In the time, in the moment, it was like, this isn't fair, this isn't right, everybody else is getting what they want. And, what I didn't realize at the time was that it was instilling in me a financial discipline and a drive or a work ethic and the mental capacity to think outside the box and be creative and come up with ways to make money. Because when you're 9 years old, you're limited on transportation. Like, you literally have to think outside the box to come up with those. So,
and on the ledger one time, there was a candy bar on there, and I asked your dad about it, and I'm like,
who charges for a candy bar?
You charged him for a candy bar, and he was. No, he said that you would buy a candy bar at a gas station, you would take it to school, and you would go to the cafeteria, and you would resell it in the cafeteria. So he was like, I'm not going to pay for a candy bar for him to go make money off of it. Get a profit on it. So that's what you would do at 9. And he said you went to yard sales, and you would buy stuff at a yard sale, and then you would sell it on eBay, which I feel like should start the eBay.
Yeah, the eBay was a huge part of my life at a young age, and it was very, very pivotal for me and just my mental capacity. I'm like, at a young age, it was incredible. And I'm so thankful I had that. But yeah, so, eBay was just coming on the scene really big when I was right at 8, 9. And, I sold a lot of things on there. Again, my dad worked at the post office, so I had a free shipper, and I couldn't drive to the post office to mail stuff. So that was a big part of it. But Pokemon was a thing that had just came on the scene when I was young too. And so you could buy these cards, and like, they'd have a good card in it. And somehow when I started seeing on eBay that those cards would sell for a high price, way higher than what the cost of buying, if you're buying baseball cards, like a pack of baseball cards. And so I started cutting grass, and I would buy these things, and I would just go through them. I'd pull the good cards out, put them on eBay. And then I'd bundle up all the bad cards, and then sell them as a group. So I was constantly just going. I would buy what I could buy from the money I made from cutting grass, or I would always go with Mom. She would get up at 5 o'clock. We'd go to garage sales, and I would tag along with her when I was 8 and 9, go to garage sales, and I would buy these just random things. There was no Facebook Marketplace at the time. So I would just buy random stuff and turn around and put it on the market, on eBay. And it would, from people from all over the country, would buy these things. And the return on it, I wish my parents would have seen what was going on and like poured every bit of savings they had into it. And it was a movement, because, I made $1,100 when I was by the time I was 10, I guess, somewhere right in there. We had sold over 1,000 things on eBay, and I which was that's a lot of money now, but like in the moment, it was huge. But it allowed me to get the things that I wanted.
Well, and one of your big purchases was
a drum set.
An $800 drum set.
I bought an $800 drum set when I was in 8th grade, and again, in the moment, I didn't feel like it was fair. I remember just not feeling like I should have to do that. But looking back now, there's pros and cons with it. I mean, I'm cheap now.
But it's made you who you are today, and it's given you the work ethic
There's
that you
no
have
doubt
today.
about it. Yeah. Absolutely no doubt about it. And I carry forward those traits of being innovative, trying to think outside the box. I've used that through my real estate career, and it has helped tremendously. I mean, I can think back to things like I was the first one to use a drone, around here, at least in our market, for land sales and stuff. I was the first one to put your face on the real estate sign. Everybody's got their face on the sign. I was the first one to do a sponsored post on Facebook.
Yeah, just the innovative
just
thinking.
trying to continue to
And you
break
wouldn't have
the
thought
mold.
that at 9 years old when you were.
No, but it was, man, it was, but all that's on the ledgers because Dad would charge me the shipping. I mean, there was no shortcuts with that. And that carried
and
through.
we pick fun at them about the ledgers, but
I couldn't think of enough, and I will do that with our kids.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And don't know if I'll make them buy the candy bar, but
that was just if you were turning a profit on it.
But anyway, so those ledgers carried forward all the way till, through high school.
Yeah.
They did.
I was about to say, I think when you went to college, you were kind of on your own.
Yeah. So, after the eBay stint and Pokemon faded out,
Well, you had a lot of, not odd jobs, but kind of odd jobs. So, do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, so, I started, I guess, my first W-2 job. I don't even know if it was a W-2 back then, but I was 14 and 15. My brother could drive. I could not drive. And our summer jobs, we would work at a place called Camp Garraway in Clinton. It was an all-girls Christian camp. And so I worked in the kitchen. So we would get there. I remember back to just the frugal and how strict my parents were. During that time, my brother had I think they called it an intermediate driver's license, to where you could drive from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Well, we had to be at work at 5 or 5:30 in Clinton, and we lived in Ridgeland. And so I remember whenever I had that permit, Dad wouldn't let me drive. My brother had to drive because it was before the,
6 a.m.
It's like you get pulled over and you're 15 and the cop's like, "What are you doing out with an intermediate license at 5 o'clock?" "Well, I'm going to work, sir." I think you're lying, Anyway, so we worked there, did that for 2 summers. After Camp Garraway, learned how to cook. Well, I never got good at that. I still can't cook. I can cook grilled cheese and a hamburger.
I thought you were like the line server. I don't know why. That's what I thought.
We did all of it. We did, we served the girls when they came through, and then did clean up, and then we did, but we got there early to prep all the bulk stuff. So, but anyway, so I worked there, and then let's see, I guess moving into high school. During the summers, I worked during school. So I was a part of the DECA program in school, which required you to work. I want to say it was a minimum 20 hours a week that I had to work. Worked at Brookshire's Groceries in Ridgeland off Old Canton Road. And honestly fell in love with work at a young age. And I didn't do sports or anything like that. So I would work. I think the most I worked, I was looking back, I kept all of my pay stubs from every job. That's another thing that's been really cool, because I'll periodically just go back and just thumb through them, and it'll help you remember where you came from. $5.75 an hour those days, And
Thought you were doing good.
Yeah.
So what's the most you ever worked in a week in high school?
63 hours in high school.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was. And I was a cashier, and then I had various roles, ended up in perishables. So, doing the milk and yogurts and all that. And a lot of my shifts were like 4 to 10 after school, every day after school. They baited you in with holiday pay and Sunday pay. I'm not a big fan of working on Sunday, but, at the time it was $1 extra an hour if you worked on a holiday, and it was $1 extra an hour if you worked on Sunday.
Yeah.
And, it was just, how many hours can I get was the name of the game. And at the time, it was back to the same thing. During that phase when you're in high school and you want a big truck, you want to jack it up, and you want to put mud tires and leveling kits.
The speakers and
all the things. Yeah. Like, my parents didn't buy any of that stuff. And so, again, they gave me a 1994 Plymouth Acclaim, but like in my mind, I'm like, I'm getting out of this.
Yeah.
As quick as possible. I don't care if I got to take a loan out. I'm getting out of this sedan because I'll never get married. But anyway, so that was what drove me. I fell in love with work, but it was to work, to turn and add something on my truck or whatever. So did that all through high school.
And I will say that gave you good experience because I can give you a list now and send you to the grocery store, and I don't have to send pictures. I don't have to do aisle numbers. You're good.
I know, yeah, exactly.
That's a pro for that kind of.
If we're by breadcrumbs, I know we're getting close to the cereal. I know that is a benefit, and a lot of life lessons. I talked with Parker Sullivan at Sullivan's Grocery about that. There's so many life lessons with working with the grocery store, and a lot of people start their careers, their first jobs there, and I think it's an excellent industry to be exposed to a lot of different things.
What's your best story from working at the grocery store?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I could tell this. So when I was in high school, I was in charge of. They assigned me to take down, they do these props. So it would be like hunting season. They do this big end cap thing where they would, put a stage together of a guy.
Yeah, I've seen that for the beach where they'll set up like a beach scene.
Right. They'll have a vendor will come in and do blow ups and things like that. Well, this was like a Budweiser end cap thing. And they had this hunting stand, like a ladder stand. And they had a mannequin sitting in the ladder stand dressed in camo, like Deer Susan's here or whatever. Well, so they told me to take it down. I said, back to being innovative. I said, all right. So the mannequin is in a seating position on the ladder stand. So I took him in the back and I took all of his clothes off, got him butt naked, and he had Timberland boots on, like, ankle boots on. And I went and I took him in the bathroom and I put him in the handicap stall and put him on the toilet. And then I took, there's a picture. Maybe we can get Hannah to overlay that. I've got this picture. And I took his hand and I wrapped toilet paper around his hand like a mitten, like he was fixing to wipe his butt. And then I closed the door. And so that way when somebody came in, it'd be a butt-naked mannequin in Timberlands.
Did you get fired?
I did not get fired. I got, I don't remember. That would have been one of those late shifts, during the week. So I'm sure somebody dealt with that. Yeah. Somebody dealt with it. But, I ain't always been the best employee, but anyway.
What else?
So I did that, and then I worked for the city of Ridgeland. Kind of took a change up, did some summer work there. I worked for the water and sewer department, mainly just maintenance and repairs on the city water lines and sewer lines. So we do taps and fix repairs and stuff like that. A lot of hard work and hot days, but I enjoy that. And I've always enjoyed being around big equipment, machinery. I've always loved physical labor, so that was right up my alley. And that was summers of high school. So after that, let's see. So I graduated from Ridgeland in 2005, and then I went to Mississippi State.
You worked in college.
I did work in college. In the summers, I worked for a company called Aero Remodeling here in Ridgeland. When I'd come back home, we'd do just remodeling
But
work.
you also worked in college.
I worked in college. It's never been a break from that. So I actually took a job. I was an RA in the dorms for 2 years. So
was it 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I originally went in to be a mechanical engineer, found out that wasn't going to work because my brother was an aerospace engineer. So I figured that was,
It's in your blood.
Yeah. It ain't. So got out of that and didn't know what I wanted to do and just kind of moved over to management of construction and land development and just I didn't know what to do really, but I was an RA in the dorms.
Which paid for school.
It paid for school. And so that was, my parents helped with college, but they did not pay all of my college.
Yeah.
And so I got a job. I knew that I was going to be owing the money if I didn't get a job. So the RA part was a great job to cover a lot of that, the board expenses and stuff like that. So I did that 2 years. My parents bought my books in college, but all the while, the ledger thing is still going out there, I'm pretty sure, because I know when I graduated college, I had to pay money. I had to pay my parents off for a portion of the balance of college. Yeah, I had some scholarship, but nothing crazy. So I did that in college and graduated in 2009. height of the recession. You know, you had the career fair at the Hump there in Starkville, and it was like nobody
Crickets.
there. I also, let me back up, I interned with Yates Construction because I was in construction and land development. If I had my way, what I planned on doing was just being a project manager for a construction company, hopefully Yates. And I had experience, did some estimating work, did some on-site work, and just still didn't know 100%, but, you know, and I didn't really, in the moment, I just didn't realize the severity of 2009 and the economy and things. And so 10 of us interned at Yates. 9 of us did not get a job coming out of college. And
isn't it funny how some doors close and you were probably devastated at the time? But
devastated. And I was applying all over the country for project manager jobs with different companies and was willing to do whatever and go wherever, you know. And coming out, the starting pay back then was about $45,000 to $50,000 a year, and that was just kind of what I thought for sure that's what I was going to do.
And you had you gotten that job, that is what you would have done. You probably never would have pivoted to where you are now.
I would like to think that outside the box innovative part of me, that, I mean, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and I feel like for sure it would have surfaced, and you know, but yes, to your point, I would have done, and maybe that's why I'm so passionate about college and shoots, because I was in a shoot where I was expected to come out a project manager, and I was being trained that that's what I'm supposed to want.
And you were kind of forced to not do that in a way.
Right, I was. And, you know, you got all these emotions going through your head, you know, because I had what I needed, but like my truck in high school, and my last truck that I had to have, my parents paid a portion of it. My aunt paid a large portion of it. She treated it as a loan to me. I paid her back monthly towards it, and then when I graduated, that was her graduation gift to me, was the balance.
Yeah.
And but I still paid a portion of that truck, and kind of lost my train of thought.
So what did you do? You get out of college, you don't have a job. What's the next move? So
I came out. Well, that was another thing. Like, it's just a totally different mindset whenever you have skin in the game monetarily.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to create this woe me story, because it's not that way. People have had it way worse off than I had it. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm super thankful of.
But it's also your personality a little bit too, that if you have a burden and you need to pay people back, that's like top of mind. You have to do that. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I couldn't, even owing my aunt, say, on the truck, like, I felt bad going and having fun, you know, and I'm not trying to make her feel bad. Like, you know, if I owe somebody money, I feel like that's a priority and needs to get dealt with before I go have fun and splurge doing this and that. So, but like just little stuff, you know, you don't really think about it, but like a fraternity. I mean, my parents were like, if you want to be in a fraternity, you can pay. And I'm like, I don't have the money to do that. Or, I mean, I could have made it work maybe.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't want to spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
You know, but I wanted to be in a fraternity. And there's pros with that. The social networks, you know, fast forward to whatever industry you're in, the Greek life or whatever y'all call it, you know, that.
Don't judge people.
There's benefits, you know, that definitely come out of that, but it just wasn't on the table for me. So, you know, when I graduated, I had a short stint where I was like, I'm going to get my master's degree, because a lot of people were doing that, and that just, you know, it's just what you did. But again, I was like, I don't really want to sign up for more debt, you know? And so for me, it was, I got to get in and get out of here. And that's what I did. So I could not find a job in my industry. And what happened was, at the time, my dad had somebody they went to church with, that their son had a company in Alabama that was a water damage and mold remediation independent company, similar to a Serve Pro or Service Masters. And they were like, I was like grasping at straws trying to find something to do. And they had they had actually started a branch here, but Dad was working full time at the post office. The other guy was working full time. I don't know if his employer knows, so I won't say where he was working, but you know, it was super small scale. They did not have a full-time employee. And so basically they extended the olive branch because I couldn't get a job anywhere. And it was, if you want to come here and work full time for us and help us figure out how to grow this company in this market, it's a proven concept over here. It's insurance related work, stuff like that. But like we can't guarantee you anything. They guaranteed me $24,000 a year salary. So 2009, when I graduated, I went straight to work, and $2,000 a month salary. They gave me a 2006 GMC 2-wheel drive truck and said, we'll pay the insurance and the gas, and let's go. So that's what I did, and I did that. Company was called Dry Fast, and it was, like I said, mainly just water damage and motor remediation, insurance style work, your water heater bust, AC drain overflow, sewage backup, slab leak, any type of plumbing issue. We didn't do fire or smoke, but any type of plumbing issue in the house, we came in and dealt with it. So we came behind plumbers, and we'd go in with HEPA vacs, and depending on what the category of water loss was, we'd go in and extract all the water, bring dehumidifiers in, do all kind of things. So I was exposed to the construction side of houses, more so deconstruction of houses. Again, it was a very pivotal point in my career where I learned so much.
I was about to say, in real estate, it wasn't even
on the table.
Yeah, it wasn't even a thing then.
Wasn't even in my mind.
But that job has helped you so much with real estate now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's helped me tremendously. I mean, I can walk through a house and say, I know based on the flooring if that's had water damage or not,
Yeah.
And I know that your shower's been leaking, just things you pick up on. So, so I did that for 5 years total. And that was started in 2009, grew that business.
I was about to say, I don't know if you wanted to say like numbers, but I know you started at 24,000 and you didn't end at 24,000.
No, I didn't. I worked my way up. I leveraged my experience because, truth of the matter is, I was a full-time guy, and now Dad would work a full-time job at the post office. When he'd get off, he'd come work another full-time day with us, all in through the night. I'm talking about a lot of times midnight, 2, 3, 4, 5. I remember numerous days I worked 22-hour days. And I'm not trying to toot my horn, but like, you just grind it out. Like, there wasn't no sulking about it. It was just, that's what you do,
You also didn't really know any other way.
I didn't know any other, and I'm not going to let my dad go work a full-time job, then come work another full-time job and be like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, I'm living with my parents at this time too. That's a big part of this. I don't know if we got enough SD space on the camera to go through all this, but so I lived with my parents for the first 3 years out of college. I didn't even really think about talking about that, but that's a huge part. And one of my biggest things is the financial discipline that I have, just acquired through this whole deal. And I carried that came out of college, paid off, I owed about $9,000 worth of college stuff. And I paid that off to my parents. They graciously gave me a 0% interest loan through the college part, got that behind me. Now let's make money. So I lived with them rent free. Same house I grew up in, lived there for 3 years, working with Dad. So, you grinding gears a little bit. He's ready for me to get out. Mom wants me to stay as long as I want to stay.
Of course.
So I'm rent free, and I just start stacking money, in relative to what I'm making.
Right, yeah.
So but I'm just frugal. I'm not buying a ski boat. I'm not buying anything funny. I'm just saving. And so I ended up saving $100,000. Of course, and Dad knows how much money I got at that point. And so, of course, he's like, you're going to have to start paying rent at some point. Like, I'm not going to just tote you through life.
Yeah.
And so, once I saved up $100,000, that was 2012, I bought my first house.
How old? You're how old?
I was 20. It was 2012, so that would have been 13 years ago. So 25. I was 25.
Okay.
So I lived with my parents from 22 to 25. I bought a $168,000 house in Gluckstadt, and I put $100,000 down. And my parents, again, graciously loaned me $68,000 at 0% interest. But I will tell you, like, you want to talk about wanting to pay a note off fast? I couldn't pay it off fast enough. And so, by then I had worked up through the company, I'd helped grow it, and I had leveraged. I'm the only full-time employee for the most part. We had part-time labor that would help, but it was me on everything. I was dealing with the insurance companies. I was doing everything. So I had all the leverage, and I used it. I mean, I'll be honest, I used it. And I was like, I'm worth X. Like, I kept bumping my salary up every, 6 months to a year. I'd be like, hey, look, I feel like I need a raise. And so I worked my way up, 48,000, 66,000. I got up to 80,000. So I got a newer truck, which still was a used truck, but I got,
But that's a lot for a 25-year-old to be making.
All my friends, you got CPAs, people that have just grinded away in accounting and stuff, and they're making $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I'm making more money than them. And, and I've got somewhat of a freedom. Now I may work 100 hours one week and 10 hours the next, but that was just an emergency-based deal. So it was hard to pin down your actually per hour rate. So I was making $80,000 a year, had a company vehicle, had health insurance. I mean, I was living high on the hog, living for free with my parents. And, or that was right when I was, I guess, buying that house. But so, after I felt like I had peaked on the salary side, I was like, y'all got to start giving me equity. I need equity in the company, or I'll go do something else. Like, I'm, ground up growth here, I'm ready to go. So I worked my way into getting 25% equity in the company, and we built it, acquired a lot of inventory, and, just was able to build that over 5 years. Well, let me back up just a little bit. 2011. So again, back to my point, I may work 100 hours one week and I may work 10 hours the next week. Well, I had that void, and how I'm wired.
You were bored.
I'm bored.
Yeah.
I'm going to work. I'm going to do something. Now, all the while, I was still cutting grass. I was doing odd jobs. I was working with my buddy, Jared Martin. I'd go work with him or work for him, doing different things. I remember running some of his landscape crews, just, on my off days, anything I could do, I wasn't going to be sitting around.
Yeah.
All the while, my mind's running. Well, I don't know how I came about it. Again, nobody in my family was in real estate, but I've discovered that I had sat for enough coursework at Mississippi State to get my real estate broker's license. And so in 2011, that's what I did. I sat for the broker's license, and I was like, I'll just, I'm always interested in land. I'll just, kind of get my feet wet with that and maybe fill the void. And so, got the license in 2011, had a broker's license, started for a guy named Bill Waddell in Ridgeland. He had been in the business for about 40 years. He had, a friend of mine had referred me to go to work with him. I was the only agent under him. And I put a drain plug on his head and learned and just tried to get all the information I could from his 40 years experience. He was on his way out. He didn't have a website. He, business card had a website on it when, dead link. Yeah. I mean, it was just, the opposite of marketing.
You worked for him for how long?
I worked for him for probably right at about a year, maybe 14 months. And then I knew that I knew that he was a stepping stone, but I was trying to figure out where to go from there. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to start a real estate company. Like I knew I would. Like I wanted to, but I needed to learn real estate. But at the time I got a broker's license out the gate, which you can't do that now. Now you have to be a salesperson for 3 years before you can do it. But I legitimately could have started one and had plans of doing something pretty fast. But I knew I needed to learn residential real estate. And so I had a friend that worked at Paula Rick's Key Trust Properties in Ridgeland. And so I went interviewed with her and went on board with them and learned the residential side of real estate through Paula Rick's. She was very instrumental, very helpful. She had a great business and just, was a leader in the pack in that era that I learned a ton from her. Yeah. And so, the land side of things, I was self-taught on the land side. I didn't have a land broker that I ever worked for to learn that from. But, I enjoyed the self-taught part. I mean, it forced me to figure it out. And so I stayed with Paula for about 2.5 years.
Okay, so the transition between dry fast and real estate. I feel like that's where the story kind of gets good.
That does get good.
And not just because that's when I come on scene, but also, yes.
So 2014, I'm getting burnt out on dry fast, doing, sucking up raw sewage and wearing Tyvek suits. And I'm like, there's life out there. But it's a huge struggle because, again, I'm making $80,000 a year.
Hard to walk away from.
And I'm doing real estate. Now, I'm selling real estate. I'm not full time making that, but I mean, I'm making combo, I'm making 110, 120 grand a year.
Yeah.
At 20, now I'm 20, whatever that is, 27,
26,
27,
yeah.
27, yeah. So, yeah, so I'm making about 120 grand combo. And I mean, it doesn't get no better than that.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
But so the drive comes in where I'm like, I really want to do this real estate deal. My roommate in college, Ken Sullivan, his dad was gracious enough to be my first client. And we sold, I think it was 180 acres in Copiah County. And I sold that for Mr. Stan, and I got that commission check. And I'm like, I'm done sucking up sewage. Like, I mean, it was a $21,000 commission check. And I'll never forget it. Now, my broker took 9 of it. But, anyway, that was, I'm like, light bulb moment. Yeah. I'm like, I'm fixing to figure this land deal out. And, So I start toying with the idea of, what does that brokerage look like, and talking with my parents and things. And I really, to be honest, didn't get the good vibes. Like, I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, they're very aware of risk, yes. Where you see you're all about a risk, and they're more like,
what could go wrong?
All the things that could go wrong.
Yeah, and that's true. And you need to look at it through that lens. But if you believe in yourself and if you've got the passion and you got the motivation, I mean, wow, I don't know what else you need.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like, I may fail, but I'm going to find out.
Okay, so you decide.
All right, so I'm...
Rein it in.
I know. So I'm going to do that. Well, I don't really know where this came in, but in the spring of 2014... I was like, I'm going to start this real estate company this summer. And I decided to take a sabbatical, which I had to learn what the word sabbatical was. I don't even know where the urge came from, but so I'm single and living with my parents. I've been out of the house for 2 years. So I do what they call the Grand Slam turkey hunt, which was killing all 4 species
in a single season.
In single season Grand Slam. And so, which is the Osceola bird, which can only be killed in Florida, and then the Rio, the Merriam, and the Eastern. And I took 45 days off. I bought a 98 Z71 Suburban, 4-wheel drive. I took the back row seat out and put a blow-up mattress back there, and I headed out. And I put 8,700 miles on that vehicle that got 10 miles to the gallon in 45 days. It started in Florida, went through New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Wyoming, South Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, did Nebraska, did the whole shooting match.
And that was just like an in-between jobs. You got out of Dry Fast. You kind of sold your portion out of it.
So, we sold Dry Fast, and then...
You took a break, and you knew in your mind.
I said I knew I was going to do this full time, and I was like, if there was ever a chance to do something like this, a lifetime trip, now'd be the time to do it.
Yeah.
And looking back, it is the best, and I don't even know what spurred it, but it was the best move I ever made. Like, I dwell on that memory is just there.
And then the best part of the trip.
The best part of the trip is I met you.
We started talking during that trip.
We did start talking. And
I always tell people this story, but I started telling my mom about this cute guy I was talking to. And she said, well, what does he do? And I'm like, well, he's in between jobs and
he's broke.
He's on a 1.5-month long turkey trip. And she's like, great.
That's exactly
Sounds
who she wants her daughter
great.
to marry. Well, I appreciate you hanging in there with me, Holly. So, yes. So I did that. Awesome experience. Came back summer of 2014.
And we were dating at that point. So I got to be there from the beginning of Hopper. Like that was when you were picking the logo and starting it. And
right.
So.
Yeah. So you've seen it from the ground up.
Yeah.
So we started in 2014, and my vision at the time was that I was going to be a land broker, that I was going to take over the land market. That's where my passion was. And we had about 14 agents that called me and wanted to come on with Hopper, like
day one.
Yeah. And it completely shifted the business model. So in a good way.
Even your signs and logo back then, like you were straight going for the land vibes.
Colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so immediate switch, now I'm not just a land broker, now I'm landing homes. And so, but looking back, we're in one of the best places in the state of Mississippi to sell a house. Yeah. So,
you would have really been
foolish to go all in on land. And I'm thankful that it took a turn like it did. So, got started, and, every year we grew, and my personal business was growing. I personally selling real estate, and then the brokerage was growing as well. And, that is two totally different jobs. It is a job to run the brokerage, and it is a job to sell real estate.
Yeah.
And so, I juggled that, and, we just grind. And again, all I know is work. And so I got in and was just, it's so hard to get traction out the gate because nobody wants to be your first deal. And so just finding outside the box ways, I remember like bush hogging property just to get the listing on it. Just things that like, I'm not going to do it
I will cut your land for free. Yeah.
Right. Like I'd reach out to expired listings, and I'd say, look, I know you've had your land on the market for 365 days. This is what I think we could be different in order to shorten that and get it sold for what you want, And so those grassroots effort, from day one, because, you hear like people I meet now, they're like, oh, it must be nice, and just like, oh, did your dad start the business or when, and it's like, brother, you ain't got a clue. Like you weren't there in 2014. You weren't there in 2009.
But also to kind of go back just a little bit. I feel like 2014 was a big year for you too, because that's when you bought your first rental house.
Ooh.
So,
yes.
I feel like that's a big part of the whole investment side of things and when that actually started.
No doubt. Yeah. So I bought my first rental house in 2014, and we weren't married.
No, we were dating. Yeah.
We were dating.
Yeah.
But we would joke around because our rental houses were bigger than our house.
Well, the rental house you bought, it was like,
it was 1,700 square feet.
It was 200 square feet bigger than the house you were currently in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and back, that all derived from the financial discipline. And another arm of that was, you got to remember, I'm all in on real estate, and there's no W-2. There's no, it's eat what you kill. It's 100% commission. And, with that, my mind was like, the real estate industry is a cyclical industry. It goes up and goes down. I've got to be better insulated on the valleys. Yeah. I need to be. And,
you need an income that is guaranteed.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's where the investment property came to mind. And I'm in the real estate field. So, I'm just privy and I understand real estate. And so it was not a spooky thing for me.
But in 2014, it was a big deal.
Oh, it's huge.
So do you want to talk about like how you did it? Because
Sure.
at that point, your house was paid for because you had put $100 down. You paid your dad off.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was pay my dad off. So
Yeah.
the house that we lived in was free and clear, $168,000. So we're back to stacking money.
Yeah.
And you get on board with the financial.
Well, we don't get married till 2016. So.
Well, but you know how we.
Yeah.
I'm
But
probably preaching it to you at that point, but.
Oh, you were. Literally, when we first started dating, I remember you saying, so do you have any like loans? And I remember being like, I have a car loan. And you're like, that's
the prereqs for marriage are, do you have land? Does your family have land?
No.
Or do you have debt?
You asked me that, and I should have known then what I was getting myself into, but I remember that.
So, yes. So, what we did was, and again, I don't even know where this stuff came from. I really don't. No, nobody in my family has ever talked about taking a HELOC out and leveraging off of it. And we didn't really learn it in real estate school. I don't know. I think it's just always been part of that drive of just challenging myself and wanting to learn. Like if there's a topic I don't know anything about,
just trying to figure it out.
I'm going to go in, be vulnerable, tell everybody I don't know, and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that came from, because what I ended up doing was putting a HELOC on my house, a home equity line of credit. So I put the house up for collateral. The bank gave me 95% loan to value. So paid $168. Well, the house now is worth, whatever, 200, say. Well, the bank gives me, I think it was 90% loan to value. So they would give me $180,000 that I could
for you
go
to
do
use
whatever.
however,
If I want to do a renovation, I want to go buy a ski boat. Well, they don't want you to do that. But so that's what I did. And so, but it's treated as cash. So this house came up in Red Oak Plantation in 2014, and I wanted to buy it as a rental house. And it was, I ended up buying it, paid $148,000 for it.
So you pulled the money off the house you're living in. You bought it with cash, so it was paid for, but then the house you're living in.
So now I owed back on
had a
our
loan
primary
on.
house. But it's a rental house, so, it's bringing in money day one. And so, one of the biggest things with this, we still own that house today. We paid $148 for it at the time. That house today is worth $290.
That's crazy.
Okay, that's been 11 years. Huge appreciation, but it's been being rented out for 11 years. Yeah. And the compounding effect of all that. And so what we did was pulled the line of credit, owed $150, got a tenant in there, $1,600 a month. At the time, it was like you could get 1% of purchase price pretty easy on rent. So we paid $148, getting $1,600. So
and again, your personality is, I can't stand owing somebody money. So you just start putting money back on it.
We're in real estate full time. Everything's growing. So we're taking every bit of money I'm making.
You're putting back
I'm
down.
literally just handing it over my back to the bank. Here. I'm literally never bought anything fun. But nobody knew what I was doing either.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. And so before you know it, I don't remember how long it took. We paid the house off, but we bought another rental, and then we bought another rental.
And it was a slow roll.
Oh, it was super slow.
But it was.
But all the while,
that was 11 years ago at this point.
The business is growing.
Yeah.
And I started, because again, I started the real estate when I'm 27, so nobody really wanted to entrust me to do big deals. But as I was getting older, and I didn't have the competition that's in real estate today.
Yeah.
Now everybody and their brother is a realtor. At that time, there was only a handful of young people. And so, I got in at an opportune time unknowingly and poured gas on a fire, and that allowed me to get established without a whole lot of competition. So I started picking up, like, again, all the innovative things we were doing. We were picking up listings and buyers and just, all kind of stuff. We were doing the houses and the land. And so I started doing bigger deals, where you may make $50,000 on a commission on a sale. I would take the $50,000 but at this point I had gotten addicted to investment property and the financial discipline. It was a game at this point. And so I would get excited about getting a commission check and putting it on a rental house.
And at this point we were married, but I remember you would get a $50,000 commission check, but it didn't even seem like
you never touched it.
We never touched it. It literally went straight to pay something. It's not like we went and did something fun. I mean, no offense,
Yeah.
But
right. And, fast forward, I mean,
it was worth it.
We're cheap, but
now
we're at a point where we can let go and do things we want to do. And it's not, we don't have financial arguments, whereas, sex and money has always been the two biggest things,
and when we had marriage counseling, they said money and sex were the two things that people argued about the most. And I feel like money is something we've always been on the same page with.
It's never been a burden.
Well,
and we're not saying that to be braggadocious or anything in any way.
But we grew up similar. Not the extreme, I mean, I still had working parents too, but I didn't have just silly things and, just middle-class working parents.
Well, I mean, when we got married, you had a car loan, didn't you?
Yes.
You had
my life savings when we got married, which I had been working, I don't know how many years, 5 or so, and I had maybe $14,000 in my bank account, and that was my life savings. And the first thing you did is you took my $14,000 and you paid off my car note.
Well,
and
it blew my mind. I'm like, what are you doing with a car note and cash in the bank that was paying no interest?
I was crushed because that was everything I had worked for 5 years. That was a tough pill for me to swallow.
Right. And I get that. And that's the mentality of a lot of just the general public.
Just holding on savings, so tight to
a
that.
Savings account. Just squirreling that away. So
you had to kind of push me out of the comfort zone of that kind of stuff.
I looked at it as an opportunity, kill the loan and then we can keep rolling this way. And so that's what we did. And we kept buying rental property and buying good rental property. That was a big thing that we always did. And, we've probably got 14 or 15 rental houses now. And then we moved into commercial. We've got commercial buildings, and then trying to diversify within the real estate industry as a whole. We have a pretty good bit of vacant commercial land, and then we've got a whole arm where we do, recreational land. We'll buy, develop, sell. Then we do residential development stuff where we'll buy large tracts of land and then we go through the subdivision process, put in roads, run utilities, different things like that. So, we're heavily invested.
And for a long time, I did all the books for all of that stuff.
Right.
Like rental property, investment property, hopper properties.
Right.
And it wasn't until a couple years ago, or maybe even last year, that you finally put that on somebody else. I still do hopper stuff, but
right.
You finally let go a little bit and decided to pay somebody to.
I'm just, frugal, but.
But you remember, I felt like I wasn't qualified to do all that stuff. And I made the joke in front of our accountant, but I was kind of serious about sometimes I just get my debits and credits confused. And he was like, oh, and I was like, not kidding. You don't want me doing this.
Yeah, that's, I'm glad we got that off your plate.
Yeah,
so
it was a good move.
But anyway, so that we built that whole, passive income deal so that it stemmed from a cyclical industry. In the event something happened, we're prepared. Because at the end of the day, that's what I've always loved about real estate. We've got an awesome team. We've had as many as 60 agents that work at Hopper, and, recently we trimmed down and we have a really lean, mean group now, and we've actually done more production. This past year was our biggest year ever.
Yeah,
with less people. And it's just amazing the way that the roadmap goes, and just how, I don't know. It's just it's been such a fun journey. But where was I going?
Well, I don't know, but the whole having income for when the real estate market was low.
That's what
but I feel like a lot of that you did for me too, because I don't like risk, and you are just all about risk. So I think a lot of that was a peace of mind for me, that if something happened and you weren't able to go sell real estate, we still had income coming in. Right. That was a peace of mind for me.
No, you're right. That was definitely a part of it. And then also just, I started to really look into retirement and what does that look like, because I'm always trying to be different and outside the box. And, it's just, we talked about this, I think, on Tyler's podcast, of just, it's not normal to talk about retirement until you get into that,
till you're in your 50s.
Everybody thinks is retirement age, Yeah. And so I started trying to create what, I wanted to set ourselves up for that model, for whatever reason. And, if the economy crashed or whatever. And that's been I'm so glad we did that. I'm so glad we had delayed gratification on a lot of things. We lived in that 1,500 square foot house. I lived there for 10 years, 7, 8, 10 years, something.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Fieldstone, and lived in a very modest house then. And I was buying and investing in projects that were way more than our house, but it was all part of the plan. To me, it's just like now. We built a bigger house kind of on land, and we kind of, built what we had worked so hard for, a house and shop on land, but I still have a line of credit on this house and use it all the time if a deal pops up, so continuing to leverage off of those things and just watching the compounding effect has been really good. But the Hopper Properties thing, somebody told me when I got in the business, or whenever I was going out, just I'm going out on my own, and they told me, you will not make any money at this. And I was like, man, that is the wrong thing to say to me.
That fueled the fire.
I can be bullheaded, but if I believe in it and I put my mind to it, you can get in the way and get ran over, or you can get out of the way and just help me. Because I don't know. I love a challenge, even throughout the real estate journey. I've challenged myself with, we got a mining pit and opened a dirt pit. That was a huge learning curve, things like that. We bought a property in Kentucky and enrolled it in a WRP program. Big learning curve there. We bought farms in Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, trying to stretch our boundaries and knowledge, because I don't know these markets, and just the things that you can pick up from every deal, be it a deal that I'm doing myself, self-developing, or a deal where I'm representing a buyer or a seller. Being exposed to so many different transactions, coupled with having a roster of 60 agents and the problems that come with 60 agents deals.
Yeah.
You are marinated, like it or not, in so much real estate complexities that it's invaluable. And it's also foolish for me not to take all that knowledge, one, put it back into real estate in things I know are going to work. Two, give back things like this where I can try to create a platform to give back, because there was, like I said, the learning the land. I had to learn it on my own. Being able to turn around and try to help the next guy or girl up the ladder that's rewarding. That's where we're at now, is it's rewarding for me. You hear people go through these different phases of, because there was times where if you were to ask me what's success, it was chasing money.
It was a dollar amount. Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but I'll be vulnerable and say it. That's all that mattered to me, was hitting these goals, being I wanted to be the number one land broker in our MLS. Yeah. And I wanted to be the number one independent brokerage. And those were my goals.
And I've seen the change from kind of just being focused on the dollar to just focused on just other things now.
Right. And that's part of maturing. And it's always good to have a mentor, and looking at people like Kelly Dabbs, Kelly Dabbs doesn't really know me, but I know Kelly Dabbs because I've watched, and he was in a very similar warpath of being an independent broker, having 60 agents, and just the way he's transitioned and moving into a philanthropic phase. I'm not saying I'm retiring tomorrow by any means, but it's just, that's part of the journey. But one thing I've always been big on is continuing to learn and grow, challenge yourself, whatever. And in this, it's the same thing, just what's the next? Doing this podcast was out of my comfort zone. Yeah. I don't enjoy getting up and speaking in front of a bunch of people. But I also felt like it was an avenue or an outlet where I could help somebody. There's nothing monetary involved in it, but we're in a position monetarily through our investments where I can get my time back and do things like this. So, that's, I guess in a nutshell, most of it. But
and not to shift away from that kind of stuff, but not all ideas are good ideas. So
no, there's not.
Let's hear a flop.
A flop?
Story.
You want a flop? I don't even know what year this was, but I started a company called Bird Dog Antler Chews. It was a great idea to take moose, elk, and deer antlers and just turn them into dog chews,
because we had a dog that loved chewing on antlers.
Yeah, and I thought I had cracked some code, and so got the logo, got it all.
How'd you get the antlers?
So in Mississippi, you can't just sell antlers or buy antlers. It has to be a craft or something like that. It has to be changed into something. So we actually, me and a buddy of mine, Jared Martin, went to Iowa to an antler auction and went up there, and I bought $5,000 worth of moose, elk, and deer antlers, hauled them back in Tupperware, and got a bandsaw and just started cutting them up and packaging them. And, so that, again, sales has always been a big part of me, from eBay all the way through real estate. But there's different elements of sales. And I didn't do good with this because I do very well if I've got a product and you come to me. I can sell it to you.
Yeah.
But if I got to come, I don't cold call in real estate and miss a lot of deals because I don't get on the phone and just cold call people. I don't know if it's a fear of rejection or what it is, but I've never been good at it, nor have I liked it. And part of that was going in vet clinics, going in retail stores and saying, hey, will you take my product? And being told no numerous times, I just like, this ain't gonna work, and the margins were trash. You know, I mean, it was just anyway.
We ended up with a lot of antlers,
and you can't sell them in Mississippi, so we were like giving away antlers, and
which we made a lot of them and gave them to friends and stuff with dogs.
So that was definitely scratched that itch. That was you want to flop? That was a flop.
That was a good flop.
I ended up taking the antlers and putting them back in the auction in Iowa, and getting rid of them that way.
Yeah.
So there's your flop.
That's a good flop.
So what else?
Do you want to just talk about maybe some
craziest thing that happened in real estate?
Yeah, okay. You're showing a house. What's the craziest thing that's happened?
I showed a house in Brandon one time. I was representing a buyer, and we're in there in the living room, and they had these laminate floors, you know, so laminate sounds totally different than real wood or even engineered wood whenever somebody's walking on it. And I start hearing this click, 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 clickety click, you know, and I'm like, what? I mean, like, it sounded like high heels, you know, and ain't nobody supposed to be in the house. Turn around, what you think it is? About 150-pound potbelly pig. And I'm like, all right, this showing's done. You know, first off, where'd you come from?
In the house.
He was living under the stairs.
Yeah.
And he had opened the door, pushed the door open. And so that was probably one of the weirdest.
Most memorable showings.
You know, you should be like, it's one thing to be like, here to a dog, but I mean, here to a pig just seemed kind of weird. But that would be probably one of the most awkward deals. Did not sell that house.
Is there anything that you would do different? Maybe like in 2014, would you go back and tell like 27-year-old Paul something different? Or
I would probably caution myself to the hamster wheel of eat what you kill and chasing that money. Like I chased the money a little bit longer than I should have.
Yeah.
And I would probably tell myself to soak in all those little moments, you know. I mean, I didn't miss our kids being born or, you know, anything crazy like that. But, you know, just every season, I was always just like wanting to get to the next season. I wanted to check that box. So like, I don't know where that came from, but just, I should have enjoyed every season.
Yeah.
You know, just all the way back to the sabbatical. Like that is, enjoy every little season. That's what and I did for the most part, but what I thought I was, you know, going after at 27, I should have just kind of marinated in each one of those
Which is
steps.
more of a priority thing. Like your priorities were just kind of not where they should have been. You know, should have shifted a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that was just a learning thing.
Yeah. But, you know, as far as advice to the next person or whatever.
And before you say that, I feel like there's something else you haven't talked about that you're passionate about, and that is like goals, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big part of.
Goals are a huge part. And I know that sounds so elementary, but I know exactly where it came from, but I have a spreadsheet from 2000.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree with the ledgers.
From 2014, I somehow kept a spreadsheet of every dime I made from 2014, and I do it today. Every time I have a closing, I go in and update the sheet. Every time we do anything that brings any money in. And it's really more of a gauge to see what things are working better than others and where I can put more attention and fuel on a fire. But it's so inspiring to go back and look and to see the stair step of the way, you know, when I was making 120 grand at 2017 and just how that has just, you know, stair step to where it is. And
but specifically goals. Like I feel like people say, set a goal and that'll be your goal for the year. And people will look at it for 2 weeks and then, and that's it.
Yes. It's just like a New Year's resolution.
Yeah,
people, for about a month and then they're out. No, I agree. Goals. I have various different goals. They're not just monetary stuff like, you know, be it lose weight or read X amount of books. If you will write this stuff, I know it sounds so elementary, but nobody does this. If you will look at it every single day, and I'm not talking about Monday through Friday, if you will look at your written goals 7 days a week, I'm talking about literally just look at it. You ain't got to dwell on it. You ain't got to do all that. Just look at it.
Just front of mind.
It will be top of mind, and it will mentally, you will pull yourself to hit the goal because you know you have to do it. And you'll just instinctively do. I don't know what the science is behind it, but that has proven for the last 11 years of record keeping and goal keeping, that has been one of the most tremendous things that I am just so thankful that we've done, is set goals and adhere to the goal. And I can't tell you how many times, like random, like production goal or something, and I will hit right around that goal. And a lot of times, and another thing is to stretch yourself. So what a motto our formula I always went off of was 1.2, 20%. So whatever it was, 20% higher the next year, 20% higher the next year. Now you may hit it and do 47%, or you may do, I had one year where I went backwards, and that bothered me pretty bad.
Yeah.
But, writing the goal down, adhering to the goal every single day.
So your advice to somebody listening to this, number one, write your goal down and look at your goal.
Yes.
Okay. Number two.
I think you need to pay your tithes to the church. I really do. I think that's another thing that we have been extremely disciplined on doing. I can honestly say that from day one, I've done that, and we've done that.
Yeah.
And seeing that check get larger every year, because you're supposed to give from a cheerful heart, and it's so hard in the beginning to do that. If you will discipline yourself and do that, and I know it's tough. I personally have struggled with, the whole 10%. Is it for somebody like us that's not W-2? Is it 10% of your AGI, your adjusted gross income, or is it 10% of your gross income? Because we've got income and then we've got expenses, and then some expenses, can move that number around if you need it to. So I've always struggled with that, but we've prayed on that, and again, it's all about giving with a generous heart, but paying tithes has gotten to be, I look forward to it. And we're different in that we do lump sum. So every year we write one check.
Yeah.
But that is the best feeling to me, one of the best feelings throughout the year. I look forward to doing that. So I would say, and you're not doing that for the benefit, for the blessing. You're not doing it that way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
It's literally a cheerful heart. But if it's simple discipline.
So advice to people: write your goals down, give your tithes. What else?
Keep that growth mindset. That's where this whole thing generated from, ground up growth. And I know I keep saying that, but I will continue to harp on that, is to just challenge yourself, stretch yourself, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to where you have to figure it out.
The always learning mentality kind of.
Yes, don't get, because if you're complacent and you're in neutral, you're dying. You're either growing or you're dying. And so I just think to continue to stretch yourself it's a huge part of it.
Anything else? Is there a number 4?
As far as advice to somebody?
Yeah.
I think find a mentor. I really do. I think, and that's I don't consider myself a mentor, but I've had a lot of people over the years that they've been vulnerable and said they look up to me in like a real estate setting or something like that. And I got to catch myself. And that's what's prompted a lot of this, is I do not look at myself as a mentor.
Because you still think you're still young.
No.
But you're not, so.
No, I'm definitely not that. But find somebody that you can put the drain plug on their head, like I put the drain plug on Bill Waddell's head.
Yeah.
And get all their knowledge, and just be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know the answer, or that you don't know anything about a specific industry or topic or whatever.
Yeah. And
learn. I like to say, I would love to sit here and tell you I read a bunch of books. I don't read books. I've tried. I just can't do it.
You listen to
my
books.
My attention span is not long enough. But the podcasts have been really good. I enjoy doing.
You do
listening to
audiobooks,
those
yeah.
from time to time, but it's hard for me to focus. I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's a term for that, but
Yeah.
it's I mean, just marinating yourself in content and around people.
How do you balance work and personal life?
That's been a tough one. Not gonna lie, that's been a big tough one because, especially in real estate,
It never
24/7.
stops. Yeah. I
really
feel like
is.
in just us being vulnerable, that's been a hard thing for us with 3 little kids in a company that doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. In today's world of instant gratification, everybody wants. Real estate is 90% problem solving. And I feel like it's 90% text messaging.
Yeah.
Like, just because you can do your deals, I mean, everything can be done over text now and voice notes. And, you can swap PDFs and contracts and things, home inspections. You can forward all this stuff via text now.
Yeah.
And you search online on your phone and, looking at stuff. And
so
we
have
pull
I
MLS
wanted
from our
to throw your phone in the lake before?
Oh, every day. Well, the thing is, it'll be something needs to be done. The kids are crying, this and that. And I may literally be sitting in the recliner on my phone.
Yeah.
And you think I'm on Instagram or something.
I handle
and I'm
that very, very gracefully.
I'm literally working, you know, and that's been a big struggle for us.
Yeah.
Is when do you turn it off? Because the consumer is expecting it right then.
And the consumer
I can't tell you
will hammer call until
I can't tell you how many times, I'm in a legitimate meeting, be it a listing appointment or in a closing, whatever, and it's like somebody calls, and if in 30 minutes they don't have a call back from me, then it's like hammer call, text, call me when you get a minute. Well,
I'll just use another agent. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's what the world has become because of technology and all that. But it's like, don't call somebody and then call them again and then text them and say, hey, give me a call. Like, I understand to call you back because that's what the missed call was for. But that's a pet peeve of mine. Don't hit me with the hammer call and the supplemental call me back text. But
we're still working.
We're waiting through that.
Yeah.
So that would probably work-life balance is a constant thing, But again, going back to goals, and my goal is to eventually be able to extract our time to where we've got the passive income set up in place. We can roll along. We don't live a extravagant life anyway, but it gives me our time, which time is the biggest commodity we have, to reinvest in people and the kids and you and,
Thank you.
Things like that. So that's it.
Any closing remarks you have? Any extra tidbits?
I think I'm pretty much wells dry, I think.
No, that was good.
But I appreciate you bringing me on.
I appreciate you coming on my podcast. Look forward to doing it again.
Thank you.